Google just rolled out Gemini 3 Flash, and it's now empowering AI mode search globally. The update is flashy, like there's some really cool features with this one, but it's important for marketers to understand for other reasons. Because faster, more confident AI answers, they don't just change performance, they change how people are using search. So if you care about AI search, GEO, or how your brand shows up inside of answers, this is an update we kind of really need to pay attention to. Hey, I'm Cassie Clark, fractional content strategist and the host of the Found in AI podcast, where I help marketers and founders understand AEO and GEO, whatever we're calling it, so we don't get lost in this new era of search that is upon us. So earlier this week, Google announced the rollout of Gemini 3 Flash. I'm just going to call it Gemini from now on. And like I said, it's now powering AI mode in search worldwide. Most of the headlines are calling this a performance upgrade, and it is, but that's not really the part I want to focus on here. What I want to focus on is what changes, what this changes about how people actually use search. So here's what's just actually changed with this update. At a basic level, Gemini 3 Flash is faster, noticeably faster than the previous models. And it's built to handle those questions that people are actually asking, like comparisons between softwares or planning for a trip or, hey, help me decide kind of questions. Google describes the model as capable of PhD level reasoning, which sounds a little dramatic at first, but let me explain what that means. It's really just Google saying, hey, this model is better at explaining why it's recommending something. And that's important to remember when we do content audits. So Gemini now, like I said, it's faster, and there's a reason we need to pay attention to its speed, because when AI answers are slow, people kind of treat them a little like a novelty, but when they're faster, they treat them like the interface. And this update pushes AI mode firmly into that second category. So you go in, you ask a question, you get a confident answer instantly, and here's the important part, you don't just stop. At least I don't, and I know others don't. But you ask a follow-up, and then another one, and then another one. And at that point, users are not just searching, they're having a full-on conversation. This isn't news. This is not news. We know that's how users interact with LLMs. However, this is kind of where it starts to matter, because that's how those trust layers start to form a little. LLMs add a different kind of trust. It's the kind that feels personal because it's tailored to user behavior. And when an AI explains its reasoning, adapts to a user's constraints, and sounds confident without sounding vague, well, users start treating it like a list of sources, and they start treating it like guidance. And this is good news for Google, because it's been around forever, and people already trust Google. So when Google upgrades their models and the reasoning quality of the model inside of search, they're making those answers feel a little more authoritative. And yeah, I think I would use that word, because authoritative answers keep people around. And this is where marketers and brands really need to start paying attention here. Because once a user stays inside of that search interface or AI mode, they stay a little longer. And the cost of not showing up in those answers, it goes way up now. Because if your brand isn't mentioned, if your framework isn't referenced, or if your point of view isn't shaping the recommendation, well, then you're basically invisible at that moment. And that's important, especially if those buying decisions are being made. So AI mode isn't just summarizing content, it's deciding which brands and ideas belong inside of the answer. I know, but that's not a reason to panic. It's not a reason to panic, I promise. But if you've listened to my podcast, or you've stuck around here on YouTube for a minute, you've heard me talk about something that I'm calling the FSA framework, which is freshness, structure, and authority. And this Gemini update kind of reinforces that framework almost perfectly, because freshness matters, especially when those fast models pull from what's current. Structure matters because the models need to go in and extract everything quickly. Authority matters because confident answers come from trusted sources. So if any one of those three things are missing, well, your content becomes harder to recommend, even if it's technically good content. So before we talk strategy and what to do, with all of this information, here's what I think I'm going to recommend first. Like, before you go touch your content, before you audit anything, and before we panic, just go use the model. Just go test it out. So go straight to Gemini, pretend you're a member of your audience, go in there and prompt a question that you know they're asking, and then pay attention to what's being recommended. Pay attention to which brands keep showing up, write them down, keep a list of running notes. I do that. And then notice how those answers are structured and the language that it's using. Then also pay attention to how confident the model is when it answers. So definitely look to see if it's explaining that reasoning, which it should be doing now with this update. Only then go look at your own content. Now, what should you be looking for when you do your content audit after you play around with the model? Well, once you do that, things kind of jump out a little bit quickly. So 3 things to keep in mind here, 3 things to go look for. First, in your content, do you clearly explain why something works, or do you just describe what it is? Second, do you spell out those trade-offs and decision criteria, or do you just assume that your reader will already connect the dots here? And third, does your content have a point of view, or is it technically correct but kind of flat? So the things that really matter when we're trying to reach your reader really matters for these AI models here, because as AI models, they look for clear explanations. And when models like Gemini move quickly, you need to get all of your information out there, and it needs to be easy to parse. So before we close out this video, if things are starting to feel like they're changing a little, like traffic behavior is being kind of weird, impressions aren't really lining up with your clicks, and maybe you're starting to feel like brand mentions feel a little bit more important in the rankings, well, you're not imagining it, and you're definitely not alone. This Gemini 3 flash rollout is Google saying pretty clearly AI mode is not a side experiment, like it's the infrastructure here. When infrastructure changes, it doesn't feel dramatic at first, it just feels a little bit confusing. But once that user behavior really shifts, it's kind of hard to put the genie back in the bottle. Which is why I think we need to be paying attention to all of this now. So if you're thinking about GEO strategy heading into 2026, like, this is one of those things that, hey, pay attention. Hey, I hope this was helpful. Like and subscribe, stick around. I would really appreciate it if you do that. And if you need more resources on GEO, like why structured data is important, or why long tail keywords seem to matter a little bit more, head over to my website, CassieClarkMarketing.com. I dive into all of that over there too. Okay, I will see you in the next video.